to the Nightlife show. As you probably noticed, today is National Bugs Bunny Day. You know, I am just wearing this just for my show, and I have to tell you that this is actually my costume I just wore. And if you already saw his AVGN episode on the Bugs Bunny's birthday blowout and the Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle episode, as well as the Mega Man episode, like one of these 3 episodes of the Nerd, I know Mike has just had the exact same costume that I have. Let me tell you, this is what I am wearing for this episode, and this is going to be a very good show. I'm glad if anybody's out there, this is just for my special occasion, and I am wearing a costume that I am wearing just in honor of National Bugs Bunny Day. Well, this is interesting. I can't even do my voice acting. I can't do them anymore, so I'm not going to impersonate my Bugs Bunny impression. So I'm just going to do it just for this sake of them back in the normal tone. And this is going to be a more fun program because I haven't done this video in a while. And this is going to be a very spectacular. It's very good. So I'm glad you'll enjoy it very much. Oh, love her. Here you go. And this is got to be the best way to sum it up with all my stuff. So since I have not done this before, I'm going to start off with you know, one of my favorite characters of all time. You know me, that's Bugs Bunny right there. I love him. I'm a huge fan of Bugs Bunny. And you know, like today is actually, as I said, National Bugs Bunny Day. Today's April the 30th. It's the last day of April. And I know that was yesterday, and it was like, today's May the 1st. I'm sorry, but because this is a belated National Bugs Bunny Day. It was on a Saturday, but this is what we do for the weekend, and I'm gonna do just that. I have not done a video since last night, so I have to do it again today. And I'm going to tell you all about National Bugs Bunny Day because I know that my calendar is actually May the 1st. So I'm going to do is decided to do a video that I'm going to do, which has not been done before on my channel. So I am wearing the Bugs Bunny costume. I'm going to start off today with my top 10. Since I have not done a top 10 video before on the Nightlife show, we're going to start off with something really cool. As you probably know, in honor of Bugs Bunny Day, we're going to start off with my top 10 favorite Bugs Bunny cartoons. That's going to be the list of what I'm going to show you all my favorites. You know, I grew up watching Bugs Bunny, and it was funny. I like it better than Mickey Mouse, but let me tell you, it's one of my favorites. Yes, I definitely love Bugs Bunny very much, but I used to love Pluto, the dog, which was a Disney character, the Disney dog. And I actually used to have Pluto stuff for years, but I don't like them anymore. So I got into collecting more Bugs Bunny stuff. So I'm going to show you guys, this is going to be, yeah, the one with the long ears and all that stuff. Well, this is very cool. So, without further ado, like I said, we're going to start off with my top 10 favorite Bugs Bunny cartoons. So, I'm going to give you the list. Let's talk about it right now. Enjoy. All right. I'm sitting here once again. I'm back, and we're gonna start to do something a little bit different today because I am now going, like I said before earlier, it's time to do a top 10 Bugs Bunny cartoons. I know a lot of people doing their top 10s on YouTube. A lot of people on YouTube have doing top 10s. So we're gonna start off. We really went off to a good start because of when I'm gonna be doing top 10s here on the Nightlife show. This is the first time I'm gonna be doing it. And before we just gonna reveal these all my favorites. So I know, I just want to let you know that I know a lot of people are doing top 10s, and this has got to be more like this. But this is going to be something, I'll do a little bit of a twist here. So this is got to be something good because we're going to do a little bit of a little stuff that I'm going to throw in some stuff here, and I hope you all enjoy it. So let's begin with a one of my favorite top 10s, and we'll have a Bugs Bunny cartoon. We're going to start off and reveal the top 10. So let's begin. Number 10, Hare grows in Manhattan. this cartoon starts with actually the the voice of an apparent Hollywood gossip queen named Lola Beverly, which did not known as Lola Bunny, which came out later on. I don't know if Space Jam ever done this. Yeah, it's a famous newspaper radio columnist, Luana Parsons. And I don't want to give you the rest of this little backstory on the synopsis, because let me tell you this. Yeah, Bugs Bunny this is one of my absolute better Bugs Bunny cartoons that took place in the Big Apple. Well, that's right. It's actually took place in Brooklyn. This was actually my hometown, and this is definitely the best one, you know. I actually saw this cartoon. It looks pretty good, but yeah, it has a more comical twist to it. So yeah, it involves Bugs being repeatedly assaulted by a street gang consisting by a pack of stray dogs. Yeah, it's one of them, I think. And of course the one, yeah, but this is actually resembles Hector, of course, will later appear in the Sylvester and Tweety cartoons. We'll talk about more of that. There were at least 2 references in real-life New York City landmarks. One is the scene where Bugs smacks. Yeah, this is one of the best moments when Bugs was smacking the bulldog with pieces of pie. That's more slapstick humor than that. Yeah, it's one of the best slapstick than this. And yeah, Bugs does a lot of great slapstick humor in many of these cartoons. And then, of course, we purchased at an automat. Another escapes through the Stork Club, and then which was misspelled the Stork Club or whatever was misspelled wrong. Of course, there was like Billboard Egyptian cigarettes. That's like, yeah, I don't smoke cigarettes in there, but there was one referencing the cartoon. But of course, there's actually there's also like dogs. Yeah, the dog fails when it runs out of piddles. The dog fails, and Bugs reverted to his normal voice with the famous aside to the audience, "Gee, ain't I a stinker?" That's right. And then of course, Dispatch Dogs saving the that's 30 for today, and he goes back to tap dancing and singing and summoning himself into the newsstand. And then of course but also the gang of dogs reappears and marches once again, and Bugs grabs a book and threatens him to hit in his last stand, and dogs go away. They see the book, and then he turns around and goes back and takes the bridge and runs away. Yeah, this is actually a memorable cartoon, but of course this is absolutely the best Bugs Bunny cartoon in my list of top 10 that made it to number 10. And now number 9, Bugs Bunny Rides Again. Well, as you probably know, this cartoon features Bugs Bunny in his second cartoon pairing with Yosemite Sam. Yep, this was actually one of the best Bugs Bunny cartoons ever. It featured Bugs and involving Bugs co-starring with Yosemite Sam in the second cartoon, which after their encounters Hair Trigger. But it has a lot of good Western theme to it, but it's a pretty good cartoon. But it was a reference to Bugs Bunny Rides Again. If you've ever seen the movie, this is actually more like that. So this is definitely the one that everybody knows that I'm just reviewing this one. Yep. This is absolutely the best ones, I think, the best Bugs Bunny cartoon in existence. But yeah, he's trying to run around, and then of course Yosemite Sam was trying to mess around with Bugs, of course, and then of course this is what the underscore was playing. I'm not sure if I have not watched this cartoon yet, but there's to challenge Sam except Bugs Bunny, where Sam says that the town isn't big for both of them. After Bugs draws out increasingly bigger guns, and Bugs shoots right in there. Yeah, it's got a lot of good slapstick and blah 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 blah. Yeah, this has got to be one of the better cartoons in this actual series, of course. And then of course there was one moment at the end. There was actually a train. Yeah, he was playing cards, playing poker. Yeah, where Bugs and Sam plays cards and determine who leaves the town, and then Bugs wins it, and they try to forfeit and wins the game, and then he tries to get Sam to take the train out of town, where 2 of them arrive at the train station and discover that it was like, wow, those swimsuit women accompanying. Yeah, this is like in the striptease number, and of course the plot was twist completely changed the tone. And then he's trying to force to leave, And there you go, and that ends this actual cartoon. But this is actually the best ones from in the actual series. But this makes it number 9 on the list of all my favorites. But I'm just going to make sure that this is definitely the best one. So moving on, number 8, Porky's Hare Hunt. This is actually, it was directed by Ben Hardaway, was uncredited as actually it featured Porky Pig, but this is not even exactly the first. This is not exactly a Bugs Bunny cartoon. This was also marks the very first appearance of what we know as Bugs Bunny, as did not have a name until possibly later on in what I'm going to be talking about in the next on my top 10 list of my favorite Bugs Bunny cartoons. We'll talk about that later. Porky's Hare Hunt is actually, this was a Porky Pig cartoon. It featured the very first appearance of Bugs Bunny. It was actually an unknown rabbit, which is the stereoactive personality and laughing voice provided by Mel Blanc. This is actually this was the beginning of what we know as this first appearance. This is the very first appearance of Bugs Bunny, as you can see here in the picture. This is actually the very first appearance. This is one of the very unknown appearance, but they did not have a name until sometime later. But yeah, this was turned out to be the very first cartoon that featured a prototype version of Bugs Bunny, and it's prototype. But this is not even, and the rabbit does not even design until probably around 1940 or whatever. And some of the earlier shorts, one of the earlier pre-Bugs Bunny cartoons that ever existed was another one, Presto Changeo, Harem Scarum, and Elmer's Candid Camera. And this is actually Mel Blanc actually voicing these the unnamed rabbit, which is and this was also one of the origins of the laugh that was introduced. It was not even they used it on 4 different cartoons, which does have the origins of the laugh that was one of its trademark laugh where it was introduced. So after 4 other shorts, well. They had enough with that. So this is not even until the phrase took place around a wild hare. But the laugh did not make them anymore. So Bugs never used, all these laughs in the first place, and actually on the first 4 early cartoons that featured predates the rabbit. Well, the one it was given to is if you remember, the laugh was actually introduced, thankfully given to this. Thanks to, here it is, Woody Woodpecker. He does have the right thing to do. And according to creator, this is what the name says, Walter Lantz, the guy who created Woody Woodpecker, in which he started to use the Woody laugh for the first time. And after the first 4 shorts that had Ben Hardaway, which actually has one of the early Bugs Bunny cartoons after the first 4, right up until Elmer's Candid Camera, the laugh belongs to Woody Woodpecker, thanks to the creator, Walter Lantz. But this is actually one of these cartoons, but I'm not going to get sidetracked here for a little confused here. But they look exactly the same, but I'm not sure that it looks similar to that. So, yes, that became the laugh trademark they used in the first 4 of the early cartoons. But, of course, the first was Knock Knock, and, of course, the second short was the self-titled cartoon. And this was the first appearance where he says, of course, this means war. And that's one of the first words they ever speak in the cartoon. Yes, I think Porky's Hare Hunt, I don't have to give you a little story of this thing. I have to watch it. Yes, it's the forest laughing and the sound of Woody Woodpecker. That was not until probably, like I said, later on. But this actually came out probably around that time. But yes, the prototypical Bugs Bunny, which is the very first appearance in Porky's Hare Hunt. I think this cartoon looks good. I remember saw this first time I saw it in a redrawn form back in 1938, which had a horribly bad redrawn version, but I don't know why it didn't exist in one of these cartoons. This was black and white, but why did it ever? Because I remember watching this as a youngster at the time when they saw a horribly bad redrawn version of Porky's Hare Hunt, which I have not seen the redrawn version in a long time. I don't know how to figure out this because this is one of the worst ones. I think I could stick to the original black and white, but this is awesome.
So that was number 8. But moving on to the next cartoon, it will be number 7. Yep. Hold on a second. When I get there. Here we go. Number 7. What's Opera Doc? This is some sort of like a musical cartoon, but it's actually, it's kind of like a takeoff of an opera. This is actually one of the greatest masterpieces. And yes, this was Chuck Jones' own favorite masterpiece, and it became a piece of work. Yeah, and this was one of his pet projects, of course. Chuck Jones produced and animated one of the greatest masterpieces ever, when it featured Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny together in some sort of a musical kind of way. And yes, and that was known for his phrase, one of Elmer's lines in this cartoon was "kill the wabbit." That's right. Yeah, they said it many times. And this is one of the greatest epic scenes in animation history, and it became one of the greatest cartoons ever. And this was sort of like a throwback to, it kind of like reminds me of the old Terry tunes, like the Mighty Mouse melodramas. That's when they start using some sort of like a musical kind of thing, like those old Terry tune stuff. Yeah, but some sort of in a more operatic way. But this is one of the best, greatest cartoons of existence, and it's kind of like it was based on some of the greatest opera masterpieces of animation history. It was it's kind of like the song "Kill the Wabbit" was used referencing the Rite of the Valkyries. I do have that record. I know this is somewhere in my collection, but I used to have the record, but I have it on iTunes, so I had to hear the actual piece. It's from, I don't know, this is from a Reader's Digest box set, whatever you call it. And this is definitely the best ones. But of course they also used that and featured in Bugs Bunny at the Symphony, and then Bugs Bunny on Broadway, which also kind of like they did a great job of redone the actual version of what they call What's Opera Doc, which was the 1957 short. And this is definitely Chuck Jones's masterpiece. You got to see this. This is one of the greatest cartoons of all time, and it's become one of my favorites. It should have been number 1 on the list, because I think that What's Opera Doc was contributed to this one, because it should have been a number 1. It should have been a number 1 at the first place. So I'm not going to tell you what was the number 1, but this is definitely the greatest cartoon ever. Because if you love What's Opera Doc, you got to love this. This is that right from the epic opening and right up to the sad ending. And yes, the ending was kind of a more sad moments in the cartoon, because yes, it was killing each other. And then the last line he says is, "What do you expect an opera? A happy ending?" And that closes the cartoon. Yeah, it's one of the great endings in a cartoon. But this is absolutely the greatest. So, What's Opera Doc was a pretty good cartoon. So let's move on to number 6. Moving on, number 6, Bowery Bugs. Actually, this cartoon was set in Brooklyn. This is kind of like a tribute to Brooklyn Bridge, and it's called. It was based on a real life Brooklyn maker Steve Brody, who claimed to be jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge. And yes, this is kind of like it's based on the life, but this is definitely a take on that. It was a tribute to the iconic Brooklyn Bridge, since it opened in 1883. But of course, they actually appeared in a Bugs Bunny cartoon. But of course, it was kind of like a tribute to them. This is actually the story was taking place where, Brody was taking a dare to successfully jump off the bridge. Around that time, in the morning of July 23rd, 1886, Brody took position of railing the bridge. Then his friend boarded the rowboat and all that stuff. This is some sort of historical fact. This is actually the plot where, I'm not going to give you the story. It's standing on the base of the famous bridge. And, of course, this is what happens. In this comical styling, but this is one of the greatest cartoons. The best moments, I think, it was Swami and asked Brody to enter. And then, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler here. So I'm just trying to give you a little bit of spoiler here. So I'm not going to read it. But this is absolutely one of the better cartoons in history, because he was the voice of Brody was played by none other than Billy Bletcher, You know, Billy Bletcher, who's been known for the voice of the Big Bad Wolf in the Disney Silly Symphony cartoons, beginning with the Three Little Pigs, the Big Bad Wolf, Three Little Wolves, and last but not least, the Practical Pig for Disney. Back around that time when Billy Bletcher doing the Big Bad Wolf. And there's also, he voiced Spike in the Tom and Jerry cartoons. You know, he was one of the greatest voice actor ever, but of course, you know, Bletcher has been doing well. This was his only time in the cartoon, in a Bugs Bunny cartoon. This was his only time when Billy Bletcher doing voicing. That was great because he was a great legendary voice actor ever. But this is absolutely the best. You've got to love this one, but this is definitely the one moment that you have to see. I'm not going to read through Wikipedia. It's taking too long, so I'm trying to give this as a spoiler. But anyways, the Bowery Bugs was a pretty good cartoon. It was a cartoon that paid tribute to the Brooklyn Bridge, the iconic Brooklyn Bridge, and Steve Brody, who jumped off the bridge in 1886. So this was probably the better cartoons that everything has been for that. So if you love it, just check it out. And now for the next one in the top 10 list, number 5. Yep, number 5 goes to A Wild Hare. Yep, this cartoon was probably the very first appearance, after the first of 4 appearances like we did earlier in the top 10, in my top 10 favorite Bugs Bunny cartoons. It was actually number 8, and there was called, as we mentioned, Porky's Hare Hunt. It was the very first appearance of a no-name rabbit. But after the first of 4 early Bugs Bunny cartoons, of one of the earlier prototypical version, they actually designed it in an old familiar way. But this is actually the very first cartoon they ever put out in existence. This was the first true ever Bugs Bunny cartoon where his first word says "What's up, Doc?" in the very first time where he says "What's up, Doc?" in the very first cartoon. This is definitely the best ones, and it's because I always enjoy this one because this is the unnamed rabbit, which is Tex Avery's first. Actually, yeah, Tex Avery did the animation, but also he does a good job with that. And this was involving Elmer Fudd, who's trying to have fun, and of course this is trying to play tricks on him. And I always want to give you a little bit of spoiler here because I have this cartoon somewhere, but as you probably know, this is the first Bugs Bunny cartoon, and this is the one I already have. This is an 8mm print of this one. This is called Bugs Bunny and a Wild Hare. As you can tell, this is the artwork. And look at the artwork. It looks like it's an off-model version of Bugs Bunny. Kind of like looks like it's kind of like they use a public. It's like sort of a public domain cover art that looks. Look at this. It looks horrible in the artwork. And he's not Elmer Fudd. Look at the left. Look at this. This guy's not Elmer Fudd. I don't know why. Elmer was in a cartoon, but I don't know why. And yeah, and you can see the back. It says Castle Films, but instead of the United Artists catalog advertisements. But yeah, the back showed the advertisement for Castle Films instead of that Ken Films. But look at this. I don't know. Anyways, this is actually the silent release from 8mm. Looks kind of promising enough. So there you go. I think it's a pretty good cartoon, but after that, yes, he's trying to make fun of him dying, and this has one of the sad moments, and then, yeah, then Elmer tries to force him to run away, and then of course he hated the rabbits, and then Elmer's trying to leave. I don't know why, because he's this is more funnier than ever. I think the last one of the closing lines when he said in it. One of the closing lines in the very first cartoon, he says, I think this guy is screwy. And that was the final line in the very first cartoon that he did. But A Wild Hare was a pretty good cartoon, and it was the very first ever Bugs Bunny cartoon that came out in July of 1940. And now moving on to Yeah, this has actually made the list of my favorite Bugs Bunny cartoon. So moving on to number 4 is Easter Yeggs. This is actually a cartoon that featured Bugs Bunny along with I don't know. Yeah, this is actually it trying take knowing every year the Easter Bunny gets some dumb bunny. I don't know the characterization. There was a guy with a little old bunny. I don't know, was his friend. I don't know his name, but of course, Bugs Bunny in there because this is actually one of the funniest cartoons ever. But of course, one of the phrase, I think, remember Doc, keep smiling. That's the that's after the explosion here. But this is definitely the one that ever put out. Yeah, the Dead End Kid and Elmer. Yes, they put a bomb or anything like this. I'm not going to give you a little bit of spoiler, but I've seen a lot of them, but it looks pretty good. One of the funniest moments in there is trying to play tricks on them, but that's the one he runs away, trying to knock them down, and yeah, it's got a lot of good slapstick to it. Yeah, it's the best one. You gotta love this. And it's trying to it's getting Dumb Bunny. Dumb Bunny is the guy who was the Easter Bunny. Get the bunny out of there. But this was pretty much like the way it did. But Bugs, was trying to escape one of the other guy, the friend. I'm not sure what he is, but this was a great cartoon. But I always enjoy them very much. Yeah, that's. Anyways, Easter Yeggs is a pretty good cartoon. I always enjoy them. So this makes it to the list of my number 4 of my favorite Bugs Bunny cartoons. Now for number 3. Rabbit Fire. This was actually the first of 3 hunting trilogies that featured Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, along with Elmer Fudd. Daffy has been appeared in every cartoon in existence since he first when Daffy was introduced to Porky's Duck Hunt in 1937. But then around that time, Daffy appeared with Porky together, which I think Porky Pig did in his collaboration together, which Daffy Duck appeared in every single cartoon. He also collaborated with Porky Pig as a team. But then after several cartoons, they went on to teaming up with Bugs Bunny once again with Elmer Fudd in a showdown in one of these cartoons. This was one of 3 cartoons in the hunting trilogy, and involves Elmer Fudd, and he's trying to. And Daffy Duck was actually a funny guy, and he was trying to be quackier than like Donald Duck would get angry, kind of like they did. But this is definitely the one. Yes, he was trying to have duck season or wabbit season. This is my favorite moment is wabbit season and duck season. That's right. He keeps repeating it over and over again. And then one of the slapstick humor is trying to shoot Daffy, and then you can see his decapitated beaks. You've seen it in every cartoon in existence. But of course, they did that again in Duck, Rabbit, Duck, and Rabbit Seasoning in the third and the last of the trilogy. This is absolutely one of the funniest cartoons that ever came out in the showdown between Bugs, Daffy, and Elmer Fudd in a showdown. But that's how he did. If you love this cartoon, go check it out. That must be number 3 on the list. Number 2. Tortoise Beats Hare. This was actually one of 2 shorts that featured, probably 3 of them. This was one of the first of 3 cartoons that featured Cecil the Turtle. Yep, Cecil the Turtle actually appeared in 3 of the cartoons. Tortoise Wins by a Hare and Rabbit Transit. And this is actually kind of like a takeoff of Tortoise and the Hare, and which is kind of like they did it based on the story. If you recall, kind of like they long after the 1936 cartoon called the Tortoise and the Hare. This is actually from the Disney Silly Symphony cartoons. That's kind of like they took the story itself. It's kind of like it's based on it. And yet the character Max Hare was inspired to create Bugs Bunny. It's kind of like an idea was involving the creation of Bugs Bunny before he came after that. So, and then of course there's, this is definitely one of the greatest cartoons of all of the Bugs Bunny cartoons. It's kind of like, yeah, he was trying to finish the rabbit was trying to finish the race, of course, like Cecil was trying to walk slowly, and Bugs was trying to run faster. And yeah, it's got a lot of great, funniest stuff. And this is actually the best cartoon, and this is definitely the greatest ones. I think it's funny. It's one of the funniest cartoons ever, and you could tell. Kind of like the reason why this cartoon was made in 1941. Just about kind of like 5 years after Disney's Tortoise and the Hare was released around that time, when before this was Disney's Silly Symphony. But this was actually the one of them, and that was all there is to say about it. It was number 2. Tortoise and the Hare, the funniest cartoon ever. And now, before we get to number 1, I'm going to give you my honorable mention. As you probably know, my honorable mention will be Nighty Night Bugs. Yep, this should have been on the, I always wanted to cover a lot of these Bugs Bunny cartoons in my top 10 list of my favorite Bugs Bunny cartoons. I give this as an honorable mention, was Nighty Night Bugs. This was probably the first and only Bugs Bunny cartoon that won an Academy Award for the Best Short, which also co-starred with Yosemite Sam. It took place in the medieval times. And yes, he was trying to run after them, and this is definitely one of the greatest cartoons ever, and even one of the best. I always enjoy them very much, and I've seen it many times, and it was like, yeah, it was the appearance of what they call the singing sword. Remember that? That was pretty much so much fun to watch. I always highly recommend Nighty Night Bugs as one of the best cartoons, and it was an Oscar-winning cartoon from 1958. And if you have seen it again and again, go check it out. So that's part of my honorable mention. Anyways, it was a great cartoon from start to finish. And now, let's get to number 1. As you probably know, the number 1 my favorite number 1 Bugs Bunny cartoon of all time is number 1 on the list is Buckaroo Bugs. This is definitely by far my favorite Bugs Bunny cartoon of all time, and it belongs as number 1. And this was actually the first Bugs Bunny cartoon is part of what they call the Looney Tunes series. And this was the first appeared to have Bugs Bunny in there in the Looney Tunes short. And in the series, this was from 1944. And it's kind of like a spoof of it's what they call the Red Hot Rider, sort of like a Lone Ranger kind of a Western thing. This is actually one of the best cartoons. I'm just going to give you a little bit of spoiler alert, and yeah, I'm not going to read the actual plot, but this gives me a little bit of spoilers. Yeah, it was a great Western, and this is definitely one where Bugs Bunny was trying to play tricks with the Red Hot Rider. And one of the best moments of it is he's trying to use a magnet, and he's trying to strip. That's the best scene in any cartoon. And I always enjoy them. And then he makes fun of a train. He rides around. He's trying to chase around like crazy. And this is best cartoon in existence. And he's trying to. And then he was referencing World War II or something. It was a train robbery. And yes, the train robbery and all that stuff. It's kind of like a Masked Rider. Or this is trying to referencing the Lone Ranger. And then he jumps on what they call the Grand Canyon. He jumps in the steep, and then one of the moments I think that I remember seeing it was where Bugs was trying to jump on the little Grand Canyon, and then he ends up in a Grand Canyon and falls way down there, boom. And then one of the closing of this cartoon was where he gives the Masked Rider or something, like he finally figures out what Bugs is the Masked Rider. And then one of the closing lines, and one of my all-time favorite, it says, "That's right, you win the $64 question." Well, anyways, the $64,000 question wasn't even out until the 1950s when it was a game show. I think it was, if you have not seen the $64,000 question, it's kind of like Take It or Leave It. It's like a takeoff of a radio quiz show. And that ends the cartoon ends with one of my all-time favorite cartoons. But as you probably know, I have this one. Yep, there it is. As you can see, here's the actual cartoon. I have it here in my collection. it says Buckaroo Bugs. It's with the cowboy hat on there. And yeah, that's the actual cartoon, and you can tell. I have seen this. There was actually a silent version of this cartoon that was kind of short, but it was edited down to like 5 minutes. And as you tell, that this is absolutely my all-time favorite. And it was the first Bugs Bunny cartoon I'd own on 8mm. And actually, I enjoyed it. I watched it on the projector, and I always loved it. Definitely the best one I always loved so much, and I'm a huge fan of collecting home movies. But there you go. That was also probably it. My top 10 favorite Bugs Bunny cartoons. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to talk about it in my next... And now, let's go back here and wrap things up. Well, there you have it. My top 10 Bugs Bunny cartoons. And I'm glad, I hope you all enjoy it. And I just want to say, this is my first time I'm going to be doing a top 10 stuff from now on. I hope there's going to be more top 10s to follow. And I hope everybody enjoys that as well. So thank you for watching. And I hope you'll see you again another time. And I will be back again sometime soon. I will give you more of my stuff here on the Nightlife Show. And that's a wrap for today. So I'll join us again for another episode of the Nightlife Show. Until then, I will see you again real soon. Bye for now.